Next up, a very important topic, particularly in such a challenging time as we've talked about of late, and the new Wellbeing, what it looks like and how it works in the workplace. And Gemma has been taking a look at some brilliant examples. Gemma, over to you.
So, as wellbeing support in the workplace becomes more and more mainstream, we've been looking at some examples of the ways in which organisations are thinking of new and different ways to ensure they're supporting all aspects of their employees' health. For TM Group, which provides software and technology to the legal and property sectors, wellbeing is at the heart of its people planning. As such, it's developed an industry-leading programme called the Wellbeing 6, which spans mental health, careers, social, financial, community and physical support for all employees. The company has seen significant benefits thanks to the programme on absence rates, engagement, the time it takes to hire new employees and staff retention, just to name a few. It's done this by reinforcing its cultural identity, training mental health first aiders, overhauling its recruitment process and advancing its peer-to-peer recognition platform, amongst other things. Then there's Solutions PT, the Cheshire-based IT company that ran a spa experience at home, I need some of that, to give staff a lift. It also offers free twice-yearly holistic massages to staff, which are its most popular wellbeing activity. Wonder why. Along with a health cash plan and employee assistance programme for staff, the company has an enthusiastic mental health first aider who shares podcasts and resources and sends a monthly Action for Happiness calendar that inspires people to focus on their own and others' happiness. Finally, there's homeless charity St Martin's, which puts a huge emphasis on supporting the mental and physical health of its employees, who are often faced with challenging or difficult situations. As such, it's embedded the Psychological Informed Environment, or PI, into its organisation, which supports team members to have a healthier living and working environment. As part of this, it's introduced counselling sessions, made relaxing and safe spaces in the workplace, and invited team members to use their art skills on the office walls. So, Jonathan, these are examples of organisations that are really taking employee wellbeing seriously. What impact have you seen on wellbeing over these last couple of years?
Well, it's been huge, actually. I mean, interestingly enough, at the beginning of the pandemic, wellbeing at team member level actually increased. So, the message was stay safe, etc. But what we saw was a marked decline in well-being of directors, senior managers. And as that's progressed, it's kind of leveled out a little bit, but what we've seen is a massive build-up of fatigue over especially this last year. And I kind of intuitively knew that just a Christmas break wasn't going to address that. So fundamentally, really, in this new way of working, we've just got, as leaders and managers, got to be acutely aware of seeing those signs of people that are working too hard and fatigue, etc., and coming up, as we'll hear in a moment, of creative ways to be able to manage that well-being.
Yeah, because in our session earlier, we spoke a lot about the difficulties of recruiting and retaining talent. So this can also influence wellbeing levels, can't it?
Massively. I mean, it's almost a given now that there is a requirement for hybrid working. And, that is the main reason why people want to move. Not just that, but certainly the questions that we're getting asked as an organisation is, what's your policy on that? A lot of people talk about flexible, they talk about hybrid. In February's reveal for quarter one, we talked about Agile Working, which is where as long as the individual met the client needs, the team needs and their own needs, that was going to work. And I think that's the sort of transition we're in. But I think back to 5 days a week in the office isn't going to happen. So people want that flexibility. Yeah,
people definitely want flexibility. Well, now let's take a look at some of the guests joining us for our next session to talk about their approach to wellbeing at work. Dan, it's over to you.
So we're Chess, the UK's leading technology service provider. As of today, we have 360 people, 21,000 customers, and turnover just over £80 million.
felt becoming a chartered manager would give me that credibility, self-assurance, confidence.
For me, it was about having that benchmark in terms of my management practice and being able to look back on something and see how I was doing and how I could assess myself against it.
As a new member of staff, I could just lean over and tap the CEO on the shoulder, which was something I really didn't expect.
There's a lot of freedom. It's totally up to us how much we work in the office, how remotely we want to work.
Recently, I've moved over to a remote role to move closer to family.
It's just like working with your friends, really. It's always just fun to be in work.
Welcome back. Understandably, this is a topic which is very much high on the agenda of many organisations across the UK. So let's have a chat with our lovely four guests. We've got Kevin, Rich, Stephen and Anne. Will, yes, there we It's just Will. Come on, get involved, get involved. We're whooping and hollering. Lovely to see you all. Thank you very much for coming. Kevin, let's come to you first of all, because you've gone completely hybrid, haven't you? Is that right? How has that worked for you guys?
Yeah, it's gone back to the start of the company. We actually set it up at a time when I was emigrating to the US. And so all the processes and patterns that we put in then were kind of set up to work remotely. They were set up to work in a world where it was async and across time zones. Now, as it happened, I met the person that is now my wife during that immigration process. So I stayed in the UK and we built a company there. But we'd put a bunch of stuff in that we kind of liked. We liked working that way. So as we've grown the company, we've sort of kept that. It was actually very easy for us at that time because the group that started it knew each other really, really, really well. So there was just tons of trust. And then we could run it with transparency. So, you know, the only way I could lead a bunch of folks that were basically my friends was we're transparent on financial data, customer data, just everything. And so then as we've scaled the company, we've liked that. So we've kept all that sort of stuff. So the move for us over the last couple of years to sort of flexible hybrid or whatever you call it now, it's not really any different. We never really cared where people worked. I guess we just embraced some parts of it and opened offices in Chicago and Belfast and hired more around the UK. So for us, it's been a good thing.
And Rich, how has that sort of idea of looking after your staff and well-being, how has that changed in the last few years? Because as we said, it's very much a priority now. And maybe going back, I don't know how many years, it wouldn't have been that high on the agenda for businesses. Is that fair to say?
I think it is. I think we were really fortunate, to be honest, because we were doing a lot of that pre-pandemic. So for us, it's almost been an evolution and allowing people that flexibility. But where it's changed significantly for us is rather than it being quite responsive, so if somebody was having an issue at home or just life was getting in the way and we were able to support them, we're asking people now to look more proactively at that whole wellbeing piece and where they want to work and to talk about where and when and how is going to work best for them to fit in around their life as well. So it is really a transition for us, but for a lot of other businesses, perhaps it's something that has been quite new in terms of really thinking about well-being and how we as a business can help our people as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, isn't it, Stephen? It's almost creating that culture that exists already, rather than responding to somebody who says, I need help, what can you do?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you know, we've obviously been in best companies quite a long time. And in 2005, when I joined Chess, we came up with our blueprint, which sort of enshrines kind of what we stand for as an organisation and what we're trying to do. And culture and well-being has always been at the heart of that. But, you know, clearly, personally, I've liked working from home a lot. But my experience as a middle-aged man with grown-up children is going to be very different from kids who maybe live at home with a mum and dad or circumstances not as good as mine. So we've had to be very much more interested in the individual in offices. I think it's more of a ubiquitous, you turn up, there's a desk, whatever, but you've got to understand individual people's circumstances a lot more. So we, like Rich, we survey our people regularly, we ask them how they're feeling, we create hubs for people where we don't have offices, and we're really now starting to re-encourage face-to-face because I think, you know, that's what our people are asking for. So it's really keeping on the pulse of what the people want.
Yeah, and I suppose to broaden it out a little bit, at the Chartered Management Institute, you're looking at how you support leaders. How have the well-being of those people, how's that been a concern for you over the last couple of years, and how have you managed to support them?
Well, it's interesting. In the pandemic, we know that well-being in our surveys came out as the #1 concern of managers and leaders. And it's not just the well-being of their teams, it's also their own well-being, because let's face it, this has been a marathon, and it's been a trying time mentally, financially, and physically for many people. So it has been extremely important to encourage managers to look after their own well-being and the well-being of their teams. You know, that saying, put your own oxygen mask on first, really applies in the pandemic. And the companies that do that and really allow their managers and leaders to look after their own well-being and that of their teams have fared better. And we know that research exists, that those companies have actually performed better in the pandemic, their employees are more engaged, and they've coped better, and they've had better outcomes as a result.
And as a professional body for managers, what sort of resources have you put in place, and how have they been accessed, and how have they worked?
Well, we've put loads in place. We have lots of free manuals on how best to work in a hybrid fashion, how to look after mental health and well-being, you know, just a manager's guide to managing remote teams, which is a real different skill set than managing people who are present. So it's almost like the management and leadership book has been rewritten in a good way, in that empathy is more important, well-being's more important, listening's more important, and those are things that actually make for better leaders all around.
Yeah, and Kevin, it seems that your approach at Gearset is just to almost, I don't want to put words in your mouth, you tell me if I'm wrong, to create an amazing place to work, and then the well-being almost takes care of itself. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that it's an easy thing to say, but quite hard to do in practice.
Yeah.
In terms of I think one of the really big things for us has been creating clarity for people. So we bring folks in and give them a sort of a big challenge. We don't try and micromanage anybody. It's not really a way you get to go in software. So for us, it's all about creating that sort of clarity and purpose, and make sure they've got the support to know that they can go and achieve those things, and make sure that, you know, there's sort of that feedback culture where folks can talk to you if they do have issues.
Can I ask all of you this, because I think this is a really interesting point. You say you enjoy working from home. How do you, and how hard is it, and how do you spot, you know, those sorts of issues with people who are struggling when you're only seeing them on a Zoom call rather than seeing them face to face? And you can spot this. Sometimes you can see those little issues, can't you? And you can see someone struggling, but you can hide that on a Zoom call.
Well, we wrote an app, basically, which we asked people to complete effectively a short survey every day to say kind of where they are and how they're feeling. And leaders get an automatic message if anyone's scoring below a certain level. We do one-to-ones every month with people, and we still do that. We're starting to encourage, again, people to do those face-to-face as well if they want to. So really we ask people, and
the old-fashioned talk to people.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just ask people, but give them permission. I think if I'm talking to you, it's hard for me to say to you, "Oh, I'm not feeling so good today." Maybe
precisely. Yeah.
So if we ask them in a way where they can kind of just get it down, and then we respond to that, and we don't just respond with the manager, but also I get all the people who work for me, wherever they are in the organisation, I get to know, so I can ask their leader what's going on, and if you see a pattern of that sort of behaviour, that sort of morale, you can do something about it. And I think it's about reacting quickly, isn't it? About, you know, and we've got a few people in the business who, you know, nothing to do with work, have really struggled with one thing and another. And I think, you know, you then have to give them really good support.
Yeah, and I can see you nodding along to what Stephen's saying there. How hard is it sometimes to spot those cues if you're not seeing someone face to face, you're not spending time with them?
Yeah, it is harder. And one thing to look for is people who are always having their cameras off. That can be a sign of disengagement, a sign that they're struggling. Another really important thing, which has been mentioned, are spot surveys. You know, just once a week, check in with smiley faces and see how people are doing, and encourage your line managers to ask their teams, have one-to-one check-ins, and always start with, you know, how are you feeling and what are you doing to look after yourself? Yeah. And the other point, which you also made, is it's really important to say it's okay not to feel okay, to normalize that everybody struggles. And if you are the leader, you have to admit that too. You have to say, you know, I know we're all struggling and I'm struggling too. And that really helps people.
Yeah, and I suppose, Kevin, you can't have that direct contact with everybody sometimes if you're a big company, but you can rely on, as Anne was saying, you've got those line managers and the people who are looking after specific teams.
Yeah, I'd echo all the same things that those folks were talking about. And I guess one of the nice things we've had at Gearset in terms of that that sort of transparency culture we put in from the start, what we got back in return for that is a culture of openness from the team. So Gearset's the first company I've worked at where people openly talk about mental health and all the other struggles that you have in life. Because you can do all the line management stuff, and we do lean into that, but it's so hard over Zoom. It's so easy to hide if you've got issues. And so what I really like about Gearset is folks will tell us that they've got an issue the same as they say they've got the cold or the flu. You know, there's no stigma, there's no taboo subjects. They know they can trust their line manager, and if they ask for that to stay confidential, it will. Or if they need further support, that they'll get that further support. So that's when I think about Gearset and what we've built, that's one of the things I'm proudest of.
How does it work at Inspire, Rich?
It's very similar, to be honest, to what we've all spoken about here. It's really about knowing your people. And the managers, supporting your managers and them having those conversations and being very open and honest with people. And it's a two-way open and honesty process as well. And it does get harder as you get bigger. I mean, we've grown from 35, 6 or 7 years ago, up to 270, and it's undoubtedly
it's a
big growth, and it's undoubtedly more of a challenge. And if you go back to when I joined the company, you knew everybody in the business, and it's harder now, so you do rely on that managers, and it's about enabling them and empowering them to have those conversations and giving them the skill sets to be able to pick up on those small nuances and flag that to the business.
Is it right you have Uncapped Leave as well?
We do.
How does that work?
So Uncapped Leave is something we brought in 2016, and it was actually my CEO came to me and challenged me and said, Rich, I think this would be great. How about this? We remove the limit on the amount of leave, paid leave you can take as a business, as people in the business. And I'll be honest, I looked at it and thought, ooh, I'm not sure about that. But we went away and we thought about it and looked at the benefits. And what we've done is we've removed all of the limits in terms of how much the quantity of leave that you can take, the cumulative amount in a year and within a single period, because we trust our individuals, we trust our people to be responsible with when they're asking for that leave. The manager still has a role in that because they need to look across the team and make sure that they're not going to be left empty-handed. But it's about removing some of the pressure from the individual, and the ones that tend to benefit the most tend to be the ones with families who perhaps are in a situation where maybe both of them are working and they're having to eke out their leave between them and try and make that last through the summer holidays and through school holidays. So actually removing that pressure makes a real big difference to people in terms of being able to take as much as they want to. And it's almost become a non-thing for us 6 years down the line.
It's not an issue.
It's not an issue anymore for us, and it's really good.
And what's this Christmas meal business? I mean, lots of companies do a Christmas meal, but what do you do that's different?
So we take it a little bit step further. We still have a big Christmas party, and we invite families to that. But we also have a Christmas meal allowance, which is £120, which we give each employee for them to go and spend on their family, taking them out for a meal as a thank you from Inspire to the families and the support that they give. So they claim back through expenses. We then gross that up so that they don't pay any tax on that as a benefit in kind. But it means that they can take their families out, their extended family if they wanted to maybe their children's favourite pizza restaurant, or they could go out for a romantic meal for two.
Lots of cheeseburgers at McDonald's.
Indeed, anything in between. But it's a thank you from the business to the employees and more importantly to their families for saying thank you for supporting our people and allowing them to deliver for our business. It's
an interesting model, which quite a few people have touched on that today, haven't they, Stephen, whereby you sort of remove the normal restrictions of work, whether that's leave or give a bit of extra money for a family Christmas meal, and actually you get respect back, don't you?
Well, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think we've all got other commitments in our life than just work.
Precisely.
And what providing everybody ubiquitous access to our kind of systems has allowed us all to do is be more flexible. So, personally, I try to take as many Friday afternoons off as I possibly can. And if I have work to do, I'll make up the time over a weekend because it just suits me better that way. It makes me feel like I'm having a longer weekend. And I think we're trying to encourage that, and balance that with the requirements of our customers, obviously, who are needed to be looked after usually during the working day. So I think with your extended holiday thing, it is really about balancing the needs of your customers with the needs of your people and getting that balance right. Flexibility, I think we've yet to see the full benefit of the kind of whole flexible working thing applied across the whole country in the way that it is being done, with the exception of certain industries, clearly. But I suspect there's an awful lot more benefit out there to be had from it if we all keep thinking about how we do things.
Should we have a look at our poll for this session? Because these have given us some interesting results. The question this time round is, have a little look at this, which of these has the most impact on your well-being at work? And your options for this one are poor management, unrealistic deadlines, poor communication, lack of resources. Which one of those has the biggest impact on your well-being at work? What I mean, what
well, I think they all stem from poor management. So there's only one thing. Leadership is you know, we're all running people businesses, aren't we? So ultimately, that's our best resource, is our people.
I know it's hard to predict, Dan. You think that's going to be a 25% split, right?
Well, the issue is that, you know, poor communication is part of poor management, right? It's part and parcel of it. So poor management. So your relationship with your line manager is the most important determinant of your well-being at work. So, you know, my guess is it's going to be that, but all of those are aspects of poor management.
Oh, well, let's have a little look then, see if Anne's spot on. This is the result of our little survey we've done there. It's pretty similar, isn't it? Yeah, poor management, 39%, but you say that comes under different headlines as well, doesn't it? Lack of resource, poor communication, unrealistic deadlines. I suppose the thing is, Kevin, if you get those wrong, you're liable to have an unhappy workforce.
Yeah, I think they're underpinned as well by trust. So the relationship with your manager is often how much trust you have. So when you have those inevitable sort of little roadblocks or a bit of friction between each other, you can kind of you appreciate, you know where someone's coming from if you've got that trust in them. So there's a little bit more forgiveness and a little bit more time to do the empathy and understanding that'll ultimately get you through it. So I think underpinning all of those, I agree the relationship with your manager is the key one, and I think the relationship with your manager can be pretty strongly correlated to how much you trust both your manager and then also the company and how it's going to treat you.
Can I ask you as well about, you know, in any team, in any business, sometimes in any family, you always get, there might be one person who has that ability to lift others around them. That you often get that, don't you? Someone who's full of life, full of beans, full of energy. How do you encourage that person in an industry to make sure that they can actually have a huge impact on an office culture or in the culture at work generally? Because they are often the people who make things tick, aren't they?
They are, and for us at Inspire, we're really fortunate because our founder and our CEO is that person. He's that driving person. So we're very fortunate that he can drive that through. But it's trying to allow that individual to be seen as best practice wherever they are in that organisation, and really supporting them and encouraging them and learning from that individual is really important as well. Because
that's the other thing, isn't it? We're all different, aren't we? And you do get some people who are brilliant at their job, but they might be quite dour, and you know they're not necessarily brilliant to be around, but they can still be a great colleague, can't they?
Absolutely, and some of the things you can do to encourage a culture of celebration is say thank you. Right? Praise is one of the most underused management tools, and everybody appreciates a thank you. And you know, whether you're dour or lively, if your line manager and the CEO are saying great job. I mean, we do weekly shout outs at CMI where colleagues can nominate somebody they just want to say thank you to, and then I read them out to everybody. And you know, it creates a culture of we celebrate the little things, we celebrate every little progress we make, and so people feel more engaged and feel appreciated and valued.
It's very simple sometimes, isn't it? Just Stephen, just being told that you've done a good job, thank you for that, is a really powerful tool for any industry.
Yeah, well, we do. We love an app, right? So we've got an Engage app, which is kind of how we manage our culture through the business. But there's two things. Firstly, we do praise, and there's a praise tool within there, and then we link that to charitable donations. So for every praise that's given, we give money to one of our charities that the people kind of nominate every year. So there's a sort of an incentive for people to praise people, and also there's something good that comes out of it. There's that. And then we have a group of people called cultural ambassadors who work in the business. So they're just normal people working in the business, leaders without authority. And they're kind of elected by the people to represent them with us, with senior management, so we get a different line of feedback, but also to help keep the culture alive, particularly in these days with remote working. So, you know, I think if you can get your culture, so it's not a management thing, it's your culture, it's our culture. You talk about we a lot rather than us and them, and you can bake that into your kind of the way that you just do things. I think that really helps.
And the other thing is you're all, people who are nice to work with, and obviously you work with great companies, which is why you're sat here and you've all scored incredibly highly. How do you avoid fatigue and burnout, Kevin? Because that can quite easily and quickly happen, can't it?
Yeah, I don't think we've actually done a terribly good job of that, if I'm totally honest. I think there's a lot more we can do. One of the problems of being that sort of high growth startup mentality is you're always looking at the next thing. You're always looking at how to grow, how to be better, how to be faster. And we've doubled our headcount every year pretty much for the last few years. And in that kind of environment, imposter syndrome can be very, very easy to creep in. And so we don't want folks working more than 40 hours. We try and encourage, sustainable success, and it's the marathon, not a sprint, all that sort of stuff. But we really rely on our line managers, because we see lots of folks where they just want to be the absolute best they can do. They want to be as good as their colleagues, and so it really requires the line manager to step in and say, you will be most successful if you can do this sustainably and build this up over time. But I think Gearset could do more here.
Yeah, and I would agree completely with that. And it's really interesting. I suspect we will probably all say the same thing, because that's the sort of businesses and the sort of people we are, that we recognise there's more we can do. And we certainly have. You were talking earlier about the uncapped leave and letting people take as much as they want. We almost have the opposite problem, to be honest.
Because people go away.
We have to tell people to take time off and to recharge their batteries. Because it's the sort of culture that you're working within, that people are really engaged with the business. And sometimes you do, as a management team, have to remind people that they do need to take time off, otherwise they will burn themselves out. But there is definitely more we can do, we know that.
Yeah, I suppose that's part of success, isn't it? Because success requires hard work, it requires long hours, and sometimes it is that dedication which you might not get in a business, which their CEO might not be sat here today, or their leaders might not be sat in these chairs. But at the same time, you've got to protect those people to make sure they can do that for 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I think the thing about now is that there's so much data there available to you if you choose to look at it, that can tell when people are doing things that aren't necessarily good for their own well-being. So holidays is a great, we all know how many holidays people have taken. If we choose to look, it's all on our HR systems. And there's all sorts of other things in terms of, asking people how long they're working. So, for example, we try really hard not to pay overtime to people, for two reasons: because people rely on it, and that's not good. And also because you shouldn't be doing overtime. That means you're under-resourced, back to the point over there. So you have got lots of data at your disposal as a senior leader to make sure your business is being run in a fair and sensible way, that you're not taking the what's it out of people. And I think that, again, as I said, I think the technology will, as we develop, and that's not particularly sophisticated stuff, there's sentiment analysis, for example, tools available now to look at how people are talking to each other, and not with a big brother kind of way, but to see who's unhappy. There's all sorts of things that are going to be coming that need to be dealt with sensibly, that will allow us to see more into what's going on. So just to the Zoom thing, Teams thing, you see into people's houses, right? So if you're looking beyond the person, you can see if they're working at a kitchen table and their kids are all running around. You know that their working environment isn't very good. You can tell, you can just see it. So you can do something about it. And I think you've just got to be a bit more thoughtful about how you spot this stuff. And if you do that, I think you can look after your people well.
Looks like Anne, you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, sometimes seeing the kids and the pets is actually very humanizing, and it makes you know your people better.
Totally.
But the thing is, what I would encourage people is, you can do well-being things on a daily basis. So we have a daily walk and talk hour where it's no screens, get outside, take a walk with your kid or your dog. We give well-being days off, and we encourage people to block time out when they need to do things, looking after their family or their kids. And so it's the everyday well-being gestures that can make a really big difference to people.
Well, you're all sat in these chairs because you're very good at what you do, and I really appreciate your time. So, Will, come on, get clapping. Thank you, everybody. To Kevin, to Rich, to Stephen, and to Anne. And I found that a really fascinating discussion. Thank you for that. And we've had a great morning so far here at Media City. Congratulations again to all our winners of the regional and the sectoral lists. And thanks to our very special guests. I think we've had an absolute bucket load of guests here, sharing their thoughts on how to respond to a global crisis, attracting and retaining talent, leading with purpose, and now recently looking at well-being as well. Don't forget, if you've missed anything, or you've come in halfway through, or you want to watch again, don't panic in any way. If you go on bestcompanies.live, the platform there, And all the sessions from today will be on demand for you to watch back at your leisure whenever you'd like to do it. In between the Chase and Coronation Street, or maybe an excellent programme on Channel 5. Now, after all the excitement of this morning, I've worked up a bit of an appetite. I've got a salad down here. I need some biscuits as well. I mean, come on, lift your game. Enjoy your lunch. This is what's coming up next. We've got a lovely interaction on social media as well. Thank you for your images and your videos. I think we'll go through some of those a little bit later on. Hashtag Best Companies Live is where you can send them. And at Best Companies, Will's genuinely running back with biscuits. See, this is, come on, throw them in. What have we got? Has he got? Let me see. Broken there. You threw them really badly and they're broken. I mean, it's, honestly, you can't get the stat. But he has. Let's see, that's a good business with thinking. Twice as many biscuits. Vinnie's World is what Will went for. What have you got at home? Let us know. This afternoon, we've got loads more in store as well. We're restarting at 1:30. Grab yourself something to eat and we'll see you then. See you tomorrow. Thank you, Will. Thank you.